This thing might be the holy grail of benchtop machine tools. It could be the Baby Yoda of surface grinders. At any rate, the Sanford SG48, that is a 4x8 surface grinder, is going to be a great addition to my shop without taking up a whole lot of space. There's actually really good research done on the history of these, I'll link to in the description. They made these things really easy to date. This one's from 1961. The 2 digits after the 1 and the serial number are the year that it was made. This thing is ridiculously cute. Like, it's small, but they have a really good reputation for the quality and the work that they do. I just picked this up. I want to break it all down, clean it, go through everything, but I haven't even plugged it in yet. So I want to plug it in, make some sparks with it, and then start breaking it down. I am missing the ball oilers on the front here, so those will have to get replaced. Okay, magnet works. That was almost a disaster. It's just a piece of cold rolled steel. Not sure what it is. It's actually pretty hard. For a 60-year-old grinder and a guy who's never used a surface grinder before and doesn't really know what he's doing, I'll take that for now. I've got this all broken down and pretty well cleaned up. All of the hardware went into some paint stripper here. There's a special place in hell for the people that paint over the heads of screws. Going through this, starting with the worst, the vertical adjustment, pretty much everything is shot. This shaft that has the hand wheel on it is really worn. The bushings are worn here. I think this is supposed to be where you put the oil in addition to being the lock, but it looks like that didn't happen. The screw is visibly worn in the middle. The threads are a lot thicker out on the ends. All of this lives under this cover, which you have to pop a screw out to take off to oil it. Looks like that didn't happen. This bevel gear is loose in the housing. Looks like there's about 10th thou play in there. The nut is actually tapped into this bevel gear. That's pretty well shot too. There's a lot of backlash in this, even out on the very end where it's not worn. This bevel gear is okay. So I think I'm just going to have to go ahead, remake a screw, get a new bevel gear, thread that, remake this shaft, and clean this up. That's enough for another video on its own. The mag chuck wiring is going to be its own video as well. There's an upgrade for this to do a full wave rectifier instead of a half wave rectifier. That just looks really dodgy to me. On the other hand, the column looks like it's actually in really good shape. Really nice flaking still visible there. And the cross slide is also pretty decent looking on here. There's some pretty ugly oil grooves hacked into a bunch of this. The spindle carrier and motor mount that made onto the column, both in really good shape. The mating surfaces on the saddle are more worn. There aren't really any noticeable ridges on it, so I think it's in okay shape. Same thing with the other side. Definitely worn. I'm not sure how bad it actually is. Same sort of story on the table. There's some flaking still visible, but some wear. And on here in the middle, there is a little noticeable wear ridge. This is all something that should be dealt with at some point, but right now it's beyond my skills and knowledge. So I'm going to put it back together and leave it alone for now. And when I do start getting more into machine rebuilding and scraping, this will probably be the first machine that I do. There's a ball oiler here to oil the crossfeed nut. There's a corresponding hole in the crossfeed nut housing, but it doesn't actually go through into the nut. But that's an easy fix. Well, I'm going to take that back. There was an oil hole in there. It was just completely crudded up. This screw and nut are nice and tight. There's not really any backlash in that. There's not really any wear on this shaft other than where the lock screw hits, but it is a little bit sloppy, so I think I'm going to pop some new bushings in there. Similar to the one on the vertical feed, I think this is supposed to be both the lock and the oiler, but I'm lazy and that seems awfully fiddly for me to oil, so I'm going to pop a ball oiler in here too just to oil these bushings. Definitely getting a new belt on there. Got to get the rest of it off the spindle here. The pulleys have some pitting on them, so I'll just throw them on the lathe, polish them up a little bit. This one could use a real light cleanup pass on it. It's got a little bit of a groove worn into it. And no, it's not actually crowned either. The hand wheels need a good polishing. The handles, if I can pop these out, I'll put them on the lathe, knock off some of that corrosion, some of the rough spots, just because you are, going back and forth real quick with these. This handle was actually pretty badly bent, but with a little convincing, I'm calling that good enough for a handle. Just for comparison, I think this will be a lot nicer to use. So this little roll pin is what mates into the back of the handle, but the way this is set up, it needs to be in there before it slips into here, and it's just ever so slightly too long. This hand wheel is worn back in here to the point where it's hitting this guard. So I'm just putting a little bronze bushing in here. I'm not going to do a full repaint on this because I've got my work cut out for me already. I don't really like painting, and I don't really want to paint the machine until it's fully restored and rebuilt. But these sheet metal pieces are flaking off badly enough that I need to address that because this is just going to get in the way. There are already 3 coats of paint on this thing. I'm going to sandblast these and paint them with the closest match I can find. It's literally called gloss machinery gray. Should be boring machinery gray. I don't know why every machine is painted this color. The paint isn't a perfect match, but I think once it gets some oil and grinding dust on it, it's not really going to be noticeable. As completely unsatisfying as it is, I think that is just about going to do it for this video. But that means you have to come back for more.